We're standing on a road that leads from Lagos in that direction to Praia de Luz in that direction, and Praia de Luz was the resort where Madeleine McCann went missing 18 years ago.
This week's search comes 2 years after German and Portuguese authorities searched the Bergam do Arade reservoir. About 30 miles from the resort, they searched the area for 3 days without any breakthroughs.
British officers have not been present at the latest searches, the Metropolitan Police said. Madeleine's parents have not commented during the active police investigation. Staff at the Find Madeleine campaign said.
When she was 3 years old, she disappeared from a room in a holiday apartment where her family were staying. And just behind me is a road leading down to the sea. And this is very much the focus of the search today.
We now know that the search last week on a strip of land near Luz and the Roja Negra was for one purpose: to find evidence of human remains. To that end, the cops brought heavy, expensive, earth-moving equipment which rumbled about. They brought ground-penetrating radar and they brought shovels and other implements. But they forgot the number one tool any top-notch investigator looking for human remains knows to use. Anyone know what that is?
I got nightmares in my head, I fear. Thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science.
There were some questions as to why the Met weren't present for this renewed set of searches, the first in over 2 years, but it is a German-led operation. We're also being told yesterday that there wasn't that much interaction between the Portuguese and the German authorities.
Now, I do think it's worth asking a very basic question. If one is tasked with looking for human remains, if it was up to you, especially in a cold case scenario, how should one look for things like bones or dead bodies?
You can see there's Portuguese police blocking entrance to that road, but what we've seen is 4 vehicles carrying German police heading down that road, and they're the specialist search team that have come in from Germany.
What was flabbergasting to me was just how amateurish this search was. Almost like sending miners or gardeners into a crime scene and expecting them to find the type of evidence that is actually sensitive and subtle. It's like performing surgery with a spoon. It's also the typical way human beings think, in one dimension. Anyone know what the other dimension is that ought to be implemented here? And in this case, human beings seem to think you search with your eyes and you use digging implements. But there is a better way, and it's not using ground-penetrating radar. Ground-penetrating radar is nifty if you're searching in ground, which is to say soil, but there are a few caveats. The remains need to be relatively intact, and it's important there are not other features in the soil that might interfere with the scan, such as rocks, roots, or the bones of other animals. Bear in mind here we're dealing with visual scans. In this analysis, I want to deal with the best way to search for human remains and specifically how this was implemented in the search for Madeleine McCann. We're going to be looking at the actual original police files in this case. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. By the way, I'd also like to recommend my coverage of the Titan submersible, in particular the documentary that's on Netflix right now. I highly recommend you watch it, and I highly recommend you have a look at some of my coverage, including my review of this documentary. I'm sure you'll find it really interesting, so I really do recommend that. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, interesting, meaningful, if you're learning something, if you just can't get enough, please do show your appreciation. I would appreciate that. If you've never hit the thanks button, please do hit the thanks button. And let's get started.
We've also seen a Portuguese fire engine going down that road, and that's in case the German police need to pump out any old wells as part of their search.
So let's go to a police report, the official police files of the Madeleine McCann case. Ironically, this section was authored by British law enforcement. Well, that's where we have our answer to the question, what is the best way to search for human remains? Have a look. In a section dealing with cadaver scent, the author writes, despite considerable research and analytical investigation, the compounds, meaning the compounds that that are produced when a cadaver is decomposing cannot as yet be replicated in laboratory processes. Therefore, the alert by dogs without a tangible source cannot be forensically proven at this time. That's quite a technical way of saying, although a dog can find human cadavers, this needs to be confirmed or supported or reinforced with DNA testing. What they're also saying is cadavers can't actually, the compounds formed by cadavers can't actually be replicated, and by the same token, no technology exists, no machine exists that can actually detect human remains better than a dog can, and specifically in the area of scent. So the answer then is that one ought to search using smell, not sight, and certainly not scratching around with shovels. And if you're going to use smell, you can't use human beings. It's interesting, in archival footage of searches, you saw some at the beginning of this episode, you see British investigators on the ground using dogs, and even the searchers of the reservoir in 2023 seem to be using dogs as well. Yet in this search, apparently the Germans have Inspector Clouseau in charge, otherwise they would have brought cadaver dogs in. It's just the best way to search. Even Google will tell you it's the best way to search for human remains.
All day.
Yeah, I know.
I know what you're thinking. It's a little humbling that animals in this area still have greater expertise than we do. Of course, it's even more humbling to go somewhere, search for 3 days, and come back with animal bones, not even knowing they're animal bones, when a cadaver dog could have told you that. Did you know that cadaver dogs know the difference between human cadavers and animal cadavers? They're not going to just sniff animal meat or bacon lying around. They can tell the difference between human cadavers and anything else. And so perhaps it's time that we re-examine the original police files, specifically the section dealing with canine searches, but also even more specifically Eddie, the dog used in the search of Madeleine McCann's apartment. And what was Eddie's track record? Anyone know? According to the police report, Eddie, the cadaver dog used in 2007 to search the Ocean Club apartment as well as the rented vehicle, had never given a false report. Let's have a look. To date, Eddie has not so indicated operationally or in training, meaning for a false alert, a false positive. In 6 years of operational deployment in over 200 criminal cases, the dog is never alerted to meat-based and specifically pork foodstuffs designed for human consumption. Similarly, the dog is never alerted to roadkill, that is, any other dead animal. That's an indirect way of saying these animals are incredibly, almost unbelievably accurate. What is truly astonishing about the capabilities of these highly trained body detectors is that there doesn't even have to be a body for them to know that one was there once upon a time. And this is what really gives them the edge over humans searching with radar and tools. They are going to find something, maybe, if it's still there and if it's fairly obvious. But what the dogs can do, what the dogs are capable of detecting, is far more subtle evidence, including if human remains were left somewhere temporarily and then taken somewhere else. How are they able to do this? Well, it's because tiny residues of this very idiosyncratic smell remain. It might get absorbed into the soil, and smell is obviously their speciality, even teeny tiny amounts. Can you see why smell is the much better way to deal with this particular challenging aspect? The police report also provides examples of Eddie's operational successes. Have a look at this one in Devon, the UK. A female was abducted and her whereabouts were unknown. The suspect was a bus driver. An initial search with the cadaver dog alerted at a location near to a sighting of the suspect in suspicious circumstances. A forensic search at the alert location revealed a small button off the girl's clothing in long grass. The offender confessed to the murder and confirmed her body had been initially temporarily placed at the dog's alert location. Here's another example from Cornwall. A woman was reported missing by a partner. A search of the suspect's house by the cadaver dog was conducted, who indicated in the living room carpet no forensic evidence was recovered. So you might think, well, can that be right? Subsequently, a diary written by the suspect was alert indicated by the dog. The diary had written extracts that the offender had laid the victim on the carpet whilst dead, and the diary had in fact been written by the suspect having handled the body. This was confirmed by the offender in an interview. Now imagine pitching up to someone's living room with radar equipment, a shovel and a bulldozer. Is that really going to be capable of this kind of subtlety, detecting this kind of subtlety? And now let's look at one final example from New Mexico, USA. A witness reported having seen two men walk off into brushland carrying a spade and a corpse. The area was searched with the cadaver dog, but with no indications being forthcoming. Now you might think, wow, so this must have been a failure. Other assets were utilized and the body was found, buried at a depth of 8 feet under the water table and under 3 feet of cement and 5 feet of earth replaced on top of the corpse. And this is the crucial part. The corpse was wrapped in cling film. Because there was no scent available to the dog wasn't able to receive that signal. But this is fascinating though, isn't it? Does anyone want to know about Keela, the other dog? And that's the blood dog, how blood detection is taught. If you do, let me know in the comments. There's also some additional breaking news in the Jay Slater case. If you guys would like me to cover that, let me know in the comments as well. Thank you for listening. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you guys next time.